you hear I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it would like to listen, sir.
I'm sorry, for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately. I play with such a wonderful expression. Have you got these cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bragger yet?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Elaine, by the way, I see from your book that on Thursday, when Lord Showman and Mr. Worthington dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne were just being consumed.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I've often observed that in married households, champagne is rarely a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is more marriage so demoralizing as that?
I've only been married once. That was a consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know if I care too much about your family life, Lane.
No, sir. It is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I assume. That'll be Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the low orders don't set the example, what is the use of them? They seem, as a class, to have no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Hello, Jack. What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algie?
I believe it customary in a good society to have some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It's excessively boring.
Who are these people you amuse?
Oh, neighbors.
Got nice neighbors in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them. Why all the drinks? Why the cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance for one so young? Who's coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that's all well and good, but I don't believe Aunt Augusta will quite approve of you being here.
May I ask why?
My dear boy, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is actually disgraceful. It's almost bad the way she flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you said you came up for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
There's nothing romantic in proposing. Why, it's romantic to be in love, yes. There's nothing romantic in a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted, one usually is. Then the romance is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I were to be married, I'd make sure to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear Algie. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Oh yes, divorces were made in heaven. Do not touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're made especially for Aunt Augusta.
But you've been eating them all the time.
That's a different question. She's my aunt, and Gwendolyn is my cousin. And before you're allowed to marry her, you must give the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean? What do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? I do not know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing up the last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say you've had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you would let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
Well, there's no good offering when none of the thing is found.
This is rather mean of you, Ernest, but I must say, there's no matter, when I look at the inscription inside, I see the thing is not yours at all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times, and you've no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
This thing is a present from someone in the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone by the name of Cecily.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives in Tunbridge Wells. Give me back my cigarette case, Algie.
But why does your aunt, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, call herself Little Cecily? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear girl, what on earth is there in that? Some ants are tall, some ants are not tall. For heaven's sake, just give me back my cigarette case.
Yes, but why does your little Aunt Cecily who lives at Tunbridge Wells call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dearest uncle. There is no objection, I say, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt of any size may call her nephew her uncle, I can't quite make out. Besides, your name is Earnest. The name isn't Jack, it's Earnest.
My name isn't Jack. It's Ernest. Nope, the other way around, actually.
You always told me it was Earnest. You answered to the name of Earnest. I introduced you to people as Earnest. You look as if your name was Earnest. You are the most earnest-looking person I've ever seen in my entire life. It is perfectly absurd you saying your name is not Ernest.
Well, when I'm in town, my name is Ernest, and Jack in the country. The cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but why does your little Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tupper 12s, call you her uncle? Now produce an explanation and pray make it improbable.
There is nothing improbable about my explanation. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as uncle for motives of respect you cannot possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where's that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You're not going to be invited.
Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, I don't know if you'll be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed into the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral stance on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And as a high moral stance can hardly be said to be conducive to one's health or happiness, I've always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Earnest, who lives in the Albany and gets in the most dreadful of scrapes. That is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is never pure and rarely simple. What you really are is a Bunburyist. One of the most advanced Bunburyists I've ever seen.
What on earth do you mean?
You've created a useful younger brother with the name of Earnest, so you may go down to the town when you choose. I have created an invaluable permanent invalid of the name of Bunbury, so I may go down to the country when I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invalid. If it wasn't for his extremely bad health, I would go down to the night Willis's, for I have no plans to Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know you're absolutely careless about sending an invitation.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I don't want to do that. For starters, I dined with her last Monday, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's relations.
Oh, that's nonsense.
Besides, now that I know you're confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you on the rule.
I'm not a Bunbury at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I'll kill my brother Ernest. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily's a little too interested in him. It's rather a bore. So I'm going to get rid of my brother Ernest, and I'd strongly suggest you do the same with Mr. Your invalid friend with the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. Besides, if you were to be married, which I see very problematic, you'd want to know Bunbury. Any man who gets married and doesn't know Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
Oh, that's nonsense. If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolyn, and she's the only girl I ever saw in my life who I would want to marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Bing bong. Oh, that must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives and creditors ring that Wagnerian man. Now, if I get out of the way for 10 minutes, so you have an opportunity for buzzing to Gwendolyn. May I kindly get a night at Willis's?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Thank you, I do.
Lady Bracknell, Miss Fairfax. Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you're behaving very well.
No, I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, two things that rarely go together.
Dear me, you are lovely.
I'm always lovely. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
I'm sorry for a little late, Algernon. I was obliged to call on dear Lady Halberry. I haven't been there since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolyn, why don't you come sit here? Thanks a lot. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens, Lane. Where are the cucumber sandwiches come to Lady Bracknell?
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers.
No, sir, not even for ready money.
Elton Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm very sorry, Aunt Augusta, but there are no cucumbers. Not even ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I have some crumpets of Lady Halberry, who seems to me living entirely for pleasure now.
Sadly, Aunt Augusta, I'll have to give the pleasure of dining with you tonight.
I hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's become accustomed to that.
It is a great disappointment, and I need hardly say a bore. But I've just got a telegram saying that my poor friend Bunbury has fallen ill, and they believe I should be with him.
It is strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, Bunbury is dreadfully invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, I think it's high time that this Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he's going to live or die. This shilly-shally with questions absurd. I'll be much obliged if you'd ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music. It is my last reception, and we'll want something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when practically everyone has said whatever they need to say, in which most cases is probably not much.
Well, I'll mention to Bunbury if he is still conscious. But I can assure you that he'll be all right by Saturday. Now, if you come with me to the next room, I'll run through the program I've thrown in.
Thank you, Algernon. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me.
Certainly.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else. And that makes me nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I'm never wrong.
And I'd like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracken's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of suddenly entering a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl I have ever met since I met you.
Yes, I'm quite well aware of the fact, and I often wish that in public, at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. To me, you've always had an irresistible fascination. My ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend named Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Earnest.
But you don't mean to say you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Earnest.
Your name is Earnest.
Yes, I know it is, but supposing it was something else, are you to say you couldn't love me then?
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I must say I don't much care for the name of Ernest. I don't think it suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Really, Gwendolyn, I think there are lots of other much nicer names. I think Jack, for example, a charming name.
Jack. No. There is very little music in the name Jack. Indeed, if any at all, it does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations, and I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. And besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man named John. The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There's no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing.
Well, surely you know that I love you, and you've led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you're not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you. But nothing at all has been said about marriage. The topic has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it an admirable opportunity, and to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I would like you to know, quite quickly beforehand, that I'm fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn?
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long have you been about it? I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose.
My own, I've never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does it. All my girlfriends tell me so. I hope you always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people around.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture is most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. And besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
We are engaged to be married.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anybody. When you do become engaged, I, or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come on a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be. It is hardly a matter she should decide for herself. Now a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While making these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait below for me in the carriage.
Mamma!
The carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, the carriage. You may have a seat, Mr. Worthy.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell, but I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you're not on my list of eligible young men. However, a right to enter your name should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I've always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm glad to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. And if it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes, and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory.
I have a country house with some land attached to it, of course, about 1,500 acres, I believe.
You have a townhouse, I hope. A simple, unspoiled girl like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I own a house in Belgrave Square.
What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that could be easily altered.
Fashion or the side?
Both, I presume, if necessary. Now on to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I've lost both my parents, Lady Bracknell.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth.
I'm afraid I really do not know who I am by birth. To speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, I said I lost both my parents, but it'd be nearer the truth to say my parents seem to have lost me. I do not know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes, the late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It's a seaside resort.
Where did this charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket to this seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag!
Yes, Lady Bracknell, a handbag. A large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
Where did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
The cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station.
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial. Mr. Worthing, I feel somewhat bewildered by what you just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it has handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life.
May I ask then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible and to make a definite effort to produce one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I cannot see how you can possibly expect me to be able to do that. I can produce that handbag at any moment. It's in my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What does it have to do with me? You can hardly suspect that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel? Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning.
Da 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 da.
For heaven's sake, Algy, will you stop singing that ghastly tune? How idiotic you are!
Didn't it go off all right, boy? Oh, boy. You don't mean to tell me that Gwendolyn refused you, and that's the way she has. She's always refusing people. I think it's rather ill-natured of her.
Oh, Gwendolyn is as right as a trivet. As far as she's concerned, we are engaged. Her mother, on the other hand, is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a Gorgon. I beg your pardon, Algie. I suppose I should not talk about your own aunt in that way before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only thing that makes me put up with it. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who have not the remotest knowledge of how to live and the slightest idea of when to die.
Oh, that's nonsense.
It isn't.
Well, I won't argue about the matter. All you ever want to do is argue about things.
That's exactly what things are made for.
Algie, you don't think Gwendolyn will become like her mother in about 150 years, do you?
All women become like their mothers. That's their tragedy. No man does. That's his. Did you tell Gwendolyn about you being jacked in the country and Earnest in town?
The truth isn't the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
But what about your brother? What about the profligate Earnest?
Oh, before the end of the week, I shall have got rid of him. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy. People die quite suddenly of apoplexy, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear boy. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You'd much rather say a severe chill.
Very well then. My poor brother Ernest was carried off suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. Thank you, children.
Yes, but didn't you say the young Miss Cardew is rather interested in your brother Ernest? Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
Oh, Cecily's not a silly romantic girl, I'm glad to say.
I'd rather like to see Cecily.
I'll take very good care you never do. She's excessively pretty, only just 18.
Do you tell Gwendolyn that you have an excessively pretty ward who's only just 18?
Oh, one doesn't just blurt these kinds of things out to people. Besides, Gwendolyn and Cecily are sure to be great friends. I bet you anything you like, half an hour after they've met, they'll be calling each other sister.
Women only call each other that if they call each other lots of other things first. Now, my dear boy, we must go up and dress now if we want to get a good table of Willis's. You know it's only nearly 7.
Oh, it always is nearly 7.
Miss Fairfax?
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algie, you always adopt such a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You are not quite old enough to do that.
My own darling.
Ernest, we may never be married, and from the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. And although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and very often, nothing she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolyn?
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma, with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your town address at the Albion I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
There is good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will be in touch with you daily.
My own one.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algie, you may turn around now.
Thanks, I've already turned around now.
You will let me see you to your carriage, my darling.
Certainly.
I'll be seeing Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
I know. A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Lane, tomorrow, I'm going Bunbury.
Yes, sir.
I won't be back till Monday, so you can grab the smoking jackets, my morning suits, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Lane, I hope tomorrow will be a good day.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you're a perfect pessimist.
I try my best to give satisfaction, sir.
There is a sensible, intellectual girl. The only girl I've ever cared for in my entire life. What are you so amused at?
Oh, nothing. I'm just anxious about more Bunbury. That is all.
If you don't take care, this Bunbury will get you into a serious scrape someday.
Oh, I love scrapes. They're the only thing that are never serious.
Oh, that's nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Cecily, isn't such a utilitarian task as watering the flowers rather molten studier than yours? Especially when such intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray open it at page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he left for town this evening.
Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I think he cannot be quite well.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Your guardian has many troubles in his life. Mere idleness and triviality would be out of place in his conversation, and you can't forget his constant anxiety about that poor, fortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that poor, unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometime. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I'm sure you certainly would. You know German and geology. Things of that kind influence a man very much.
I am not sure I would wish to reclaim him. I am not fond of this modern mania for turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so shall he reap. Put away that diary, Cecily. I don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels Moody sends us.
Do not speak slightly of the 3-volume novel. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? Was your novel ever published?
No, unfortunately the manuscript was abandoned. Back to your work, child. These speculations are profitless.
But I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble? This is indeed a pleasure.
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, you are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I've mentioned nothing of a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that, and not my German lesson when the priest came in.
I hope, Cecily, you're not inattentive.
Oh, I am afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from bees. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not returned from town yet.
We do not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes, he usually does like to spend his Sundays at London. But he is not one whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts an unfortunate young man his brother seems to be. But I must not disturb Miss Prism and her pupil any longer.
I think, dear doctor, that I find I do have a slight headache after all, and a stroll with you might do it some good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
That would be lovely. Cecily, you'll review your political economy in my absence.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just come down from the station. He has brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing B40 out of W, Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
I did. He seemed very disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He said he was very anxious to speak with you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here. I suppose you better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I have never really met any wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everybody else. He does!
You must be little Cecily, I'm sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I'm not little. In fact, I believe I'm more than usually tall for my age. But I am Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother. Ernest. Wicked Ernest.
Oh, I'm not really wicked at all, Cecily. You mustn't think that I'm wicked.
If you are not, you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Well, I must admit I've been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it. I can't see how you were here at all, though. Uncle Jack will be back till Monday afternoon.
Oh, it's a great disappointment. I'm obliged to go back into town by Monday. I have a business appointment I'm anxious to miss.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is to not keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But I still think you'd better wait till Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak with you about your immigrating.
About my what?
Your immigrating. He has gone up to buy your outfit.
I would not let Jack buy my outfits. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Uncle Jack said at dinner on Wednesday night that you had to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Well, the accounts of the next world in Australia are not very encouraging. This world is good enough for me, Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I am not. That's why I've come down here. I want you to reform me. I want you to make it your mission. I feel better already.
You are looking a little worse.
That's because I'm hungry.
How thoughtless of me! I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
You are the prettiest girl I've ever seen.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
You're a snare that every sensible man would love to be caught in.
Oh, I don't think I would care to catch a sensible man. I should know to talk to him about.
You are far too alone, dear Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand, but a womanthrope never.
Believe me, I do not deserve such neologistic a phrase. The precept as well as the practice of the primitive church is distinctly against matrimony.
Perhaps that's why the primitive church has not lasted up until present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No man is ever attractive when married, except to his wife.
And often I've been told, not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. But where is Cecily?
Perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthing!
Mr. Worthing!
This is indeed a surprise. We did not expect you till Monday afternoon.
I've arrived sooner than I expected. Dr. Coswell, I hope you're well.
Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother,
More debts and extravagance?
Still leading his life of pleasure.
dead!
Your brother, Ernest, dead!
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
Mr. Worthing, I offer you my sincere condolence.
Poor Ernest. He's a man of many faults, but it's a sad, sad blow.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Prism, charity! None of us are perfect. I myself am particularly susceptible to colds. Where will the funeral take place?
He seems to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris! I fear this hardly points to any very serious state of mind at last. You no doubt wish to make some slight allusion to this terrible domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of manna in the wilderness can be adapted to any occasion, joyous or, as in the present case, distressing. I preached it at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmation, days of humiliation, and festal days.
That reminds me. You mentioned christenings, I think, Dr. Choswell. I suppose you know how to christen, all right?
It is one of the priest's most constant duties in this parish. I've often spoken to the poorer classes about this, but they don't know what thrift is.
But is there an infant in whom you're interested, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it is not for any child, dear doctor. No, I'm quite fond of children. The fact is, I'd like to be christened myself this afternoon, if you have the time for it.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you've been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it.
But have you any great doubts on the subject?
I certainly intend to have, but I don't know if it would bother you in any way, or you think I'm a little too old now.
Oh, not at all. Sprinkling and indeed immersion is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
You need have no apprehensions. Sprinkling is all that is necessary, or I think advisable. Our weather is so changeable. When would you wish the ceremony performed?
I might trot around about 5:30, if that was all right with you?
Admirably, admirably. And now, dear Mr. Worthing, I must not intrude into the house of sorrow any longer. I would merely beg you not to be too bowed down by grief yourself. What seems to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack! Oh, I'm so pleased to see you back! But what horrid clothes you have got on. Do go and change them.
Cecily!
My child, my child.
What is the matter? Uncle Jack, do look happy. You look as if you had a toothache. I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother.
Who?
Your brother, Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
That's nonsense. I haven't got a brother.
Uncle Jack, you couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out and you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
Oh, these are very joyful tidings.
After we were all resigned to his loss, his sudden return seems to me peculiarly distressing.
My brother is in the dining room. I don't know what it all means. I think it's absurd. Good heavens.